Imagine being told you have a lifelong condition in just 5 minutes. No emotional support, no clarity, and no roadmap. Hmm. Let's pause a bit and think about this. How would you feel? Me personally, I would feel horrified. But the reality of this situation in my community or the low and medium income setting is that diabetes begins with zero understanding. It is more built on fear. I am a great believer of diabetes diagnosis being a moment of total clarity rather than traumatic experience. Today, I'm going to break down this topic of discourse from multiple perspectives. So, I'm going to be looking at the perspective of the individual living with diabetes or the person living with diabetes. Secondly, I'm going to look at it from a healthcare professional point of view. And thirdly, I'm going to look at it from the family and the community point of view. And then fourthly, I'm going to look at it from the perspective of the healthcare system. And more importantly, how we can actually fix this way of informing someone that they live with a lifelong condition and making it less traumatic and more acceptable. So, section 1, I will look at why diabetes diagnosis feels traumatic in a low and medium income setting. Sometimes, even in the developed setting, it also looks traumatic, but I'm not going to go into too much detail. My focus here is in the low and medium income setting. Number 1, information overload and poor communication. These two combinations are just the number 1 traumatic way of informing someone that they live with a lifelong condition like diabetes. First of all, the healthcare professional is using too many medical jargons. The healthcare professional does not give the person living with diabetes time to process the information that is riddled with so much medical jargon. And there's no emotional framing from the healthcare professional. That's number 1. Number 1 reason why it looks traumatic and feels traumatic. Number 2, there's a lot of fear-based messaging, like, oh, you could lose your legs if you have a tiny wee injury. You'll be on medication for life. These statements create a lot of anxiety and don't empower the person that is being told about a lifelong condition. I'll give you one example. I never learned how to ride a bicycle as a young girl. Reason being that I was given fear-based messaging. My parents were told if she has any injury, even a tiny cut, it is never going to heal, and it might lead to amputation of a body part. And because of that, my parents decided no bicycles for myself and my siblings, because they didn't want me to feel like, because of me, they're not getting this, and they're not getting this. So my parents just decided not to even buy any bicycle for my siblings, because they didn't want me to feel bad. Oh, because of diabetes, she can't ride a bicycle and all of that. So that was number 1, fear-based messaging. So that made me Even till date, I don't know how to ride a bicycle. That's me being truthful. So that's about fear-based messaging. Now let's look at it from a low and medium income setting context. So there is lack of cultural context. So there's a lot of misconceptions, spiritual causes, and then stigma. I was told this, oh, this diabetes was caused by spiritual causes, by juju or voodoo. The stories were just too many to comprehend back then. So because they were like, oh, how can a young girl at 7 be living with diabetes? Diabetes is for old people. Oh, there's a spiritual undertone to her diagnosis. That was me. That's the lack of cultural context. And you will hear a lot of dietary advice that doesn't reflect our local foods. Number 4 reason, isolation and identity shock. Oh, why me? I asked myself this question over and over and over and over again. My siblings were healthy, my parents were healthy, and I kept asking, why did it have to be me to develop diabetes? And there was this fear of stigma and how my future relationships will unfold. Now, section 2, let's look at different perspectives. So that I previously mentioned earlier on in the video. Now, let's look at the patient perspective. So when it comes to a person living with diabetes, you come to the hospital, you're given that diagnosis. What you would expect from your healthcare professional passing on that information to you would be a lot of empathy, clarity, time, and making you feel seen and not diagnosed. So that's the patient perspective. Now, let's move on to the healthcare professional perspective. You can't blame them. They have loads of people to see. So we've got time constraints. We've got pressure from the system of the hospital. And we have lack of communication training. So sometimes bedside manners is 0. No bedside manners. Now, let's move ahead and look at the family perspective. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of confusion. And sometimes blame comes into play as well. And this will make them to not have that ability to support, and in most times they end up worsening the traumatic experience that you've gotten from the healthcare professional. Moving on to the community perspective. Oh, we have stigma, a lot of myth going around, and lack of awareness, which often leads to delayed acceptance. Moving on, we'll look at the system perspective. So this is usually reactive and not preventive. And there is a very minimal structured education at diagnosis. Section 3, let's look at how we can make it less traumatizing. I will look at this from a point-based approach. Point number 1, let's try and humanize diagnosis. Let us start with empathy. We use phrases like, "You are not alone. This is manageable. This is something I was never told. So for us to make it less traumatizing, let's humanize the diagnosis. And number 2, stage the information. Don't give out all the information all at once. You need to provide a simple first 24 to 48 hours survival guide. Yes. Number 3, introduce peer support early. This is very, very important. I never had this. There was no roadmap for me, so it was quite a journey, but it made me a stronger individual. Real stories reduce fear. Lived experience equates to powerful medicine. Now, the 4th point, we'll look at cultural and contextual education. So let's use food examples that actually reflect real life. That is why me personally, I am 100% Nigerian and African meals. I like things to reflect real life. I don't like to leave a false pretext. It makes it not doable. So having my normal meals, cultural meals, reflects how real life should be. And language that can resonate locally is also very important. And number 5 point, let us reframe the narratives. So let's move away from restriction to adaptation and empowerment. Number 6, let's build a follow-up system. You don't just see someone in clinic and say, oh, bye, I'll see you in the next 3 years. No. Diagnosis is the beginning and not the end point. So there should be a follow-up system. Section 4, this is my reflection, all from my point of view. The more I, as a person living with diabetes, speaks with people, the more I realize that diabetes itself is not always the trauma. It is more on how it is actually introduced to the individual at diagnosis. We can really do better. Yes, we can really do better. Not just medically alone, but being human. I want to hear from you. How was your diagnosis experience? What would you have, or what would have made it easier for you? If you're a healthcare professional, what challenges do you face in informing someone that they have a lifelong condition? I need you all to drop your comments or drop your thoughts in the comments section. Let's try and build a better system for our communities back home. And by all means, like, share, and subscribe. And I want to say a big thank you for watching this video. And this is me, as always, blowing your way reality-based diabetes education. And I'll see you all in my next video.